G'day, Geoff Lewis here from Seriously Series, and welcome to part 4 of engine troubles with this 1975 Land Rover Series 3. Now, those of you who have been following the chronicle, the saga that is the 2.25 litre petrol engine that's been rebuilt in this Series 3, you will know that it hasn't been an easy run. And don't worry, it's not letting up as of yet. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a brew or something slightly stronger, but most importantly, click on that subscribe button down below, click on that notification button too, but if all else fails, stay tuned. Right, so since I spoke to you last, which was a couple weeks ago, it's been an absolute roller coaster here. A roller coaster of emotions, you could say, and a heck of a lot more. But don't worry, the next however many minutes that this video will go for will not be me using YouTube as a therapy means. I'm going to refrain from ranting. It's going to be hard not to go down the ranting road with what's happened, but I'm going to resist not going down that road. But what I am going to tell you is about the facts, and that's what we're interested here at Seriously Series. And the fact is that the Series 3 has moved. That's right, it has started its run-in process with its new heart, the rebuilt, now twice over, 2.25 litre petrol engine. But things are not all well in paradise. No, the troubles continue. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. And I hope with this video that the problems that I'm having might be a reference for others. And if you find yourself in this situation, maybe you can go, I remember listening to Geoff chatting about that before. That's what that is. That's what that is. Sorted. And you don't have to go through the weeks of woes that I have. But anyway, bit of an update. So it's been very busy here. I've been getting ready for a new doco series that we were going to shoot, just myself and Mike, a very, very simple affair. It was going to be shot to go onto community television networks, YouTube, so no one would be missing out, Patreon obviously, and potentially Vimeo. But I've had to abandon it because of, we won't say their name, but it's here with us. And also Damon and myself are gearing up, getting ready, getting prepped for the Perth 4-wheel drive show, which is in early November, not far from now. And because I've had to spend so much time dealing with all the things, we'll say, that has happened with this vehicle, I have neglected the production of YouTube videos, and that is why we missed your installment of Seriously Series last week, and why this one is slightly late. Okay, so now you know where we're coming from. But what has happened, Jeffrey? That's what you're saying. Well, don't worry. Part 3, I fired it up and I showed you that the motor was running fine. It was alive, and it very much is. Well, it was then, I should say. Anyway, because I've been busy, I've got a good friend of mine, Jason, who's appeared on the channel on and off, to take it for its first initial run-in. And it went really, really well. There wasn't really any problems with the motor. There was a few weeps of oil in the drivetrain, nothing much, nothing that a few new seals couldn't fix, and overall pretty good. So I felt pretty confident. I finally felt that the love-hate relationship that we've had for the last 6 years was finally starting to turn a corner. and it was starting to take on, the Series 3 that is, more of the dependability and reliability of its predecessor, the Series 2, or predecessor and models. The Series 2 is still very much alive and well. But, well, things happened. So with this newfound confidence, I thought, right, I'm going to do a good trip and a run-in, and I'm going to film it, and we're going to do a really nice, you know, little mini adventure of myself, the Series 3, running it in, sharing with you guys and girls, you know, the whole process, and it'd be great. Anyway, that didn't happen, but I decided that I would drive the 400 kilometres roughly from Kalgoorlie to Esperance, and this basically takes you down to the coast. And along the way, because hills are very hard and few out here, because it's flat as a tack, there are some undulations that people call hills, so that was good to bed the rings in. And anyway, everything went fine. I was sitting on 70 to 80 kilometres an hour, which is about probably, I guess, sort of 50 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour. And I was stopping every sort of 30, 40 kilometres where the little towns were, double checking everything, listening out intently as we were, you know, puttering along. And it was a wonderful day. It was a wonderful day. Weather-wise, it was beautiful. Anyway, after the sort of 180 kilometre mark, I reached the township of Norseman, and I thought, oh yeah, we'll stop here. And there wasn't much to be found lunch-wise in the service station, so I thought, okay, we'll keep carrying on down Salmon Gums. And, you know, it was ticking along fine. But then the weather changed. And I'm not doing this to be dramatic, it actually did change. The storm clouds came in, the wind came up, the rain hailed, and this thing decided to, I don't know what you would call it, but it did something. And rolling into the small township of Salmon Gums, it was like a bad day in the Battle of Britain. It sounded like half a bank of a Merlin engine or a ME-109 had half been shot to pieces. It sounded like a gravel truck. Anyway, I thought, well, you know, it was running a bit low on fuel. Maybe it sucked up a bit of gunk from the tank and it's clogged up the carburetor. Things like this happen, even though I'd flushed the tanks out. So I filled it up, went to start it up, nothing happened. Went to start it up and it's just backfiring like nothing else. And I thought, well, you know, wishful thinking, I thought if I drive down the road a little bit, if it's a bit of gunk stuck in the main jet, maybe it'll just suck it through, even though I'd done an Italian tune-up, and everything will be okay. You know, sometimes it's just easier to cross your fingers. It didn't. So I stranded on the side of the road with the wind and the rain and all the rest for about an hour, and telling it exactly what I thought of it. I finally decided after that it wasn't the carburetor. It couldn't be the coil because that was brand new. I couldn't think or imagine that it would be the points or condenser because they were all brand new. The distributor is completely rebuilt and refurbished, so it probably wasn't that, along with the distributor cap and the high tension leads. So it couldn't be that either. But anyway, I just thought, what the hell, I'll try and change the points. And as fate would have it, I had every tool in the back under the sun, but the one thing I forgot was my feeler gauge set. So went into the back of the Series 3, and luckily I had an old box. And by getting a bit of cardboard and using my teeth, I slowly whittled it down to be the same width or thickness as the actual point gap. And so I pulled the old points out, put a new set in, fired it up, and it was fine. And the funny thing is, I was doing 70 to 80 kilometres to get down to Salmon Gums. When I drove back, this thing was sitting on 90 to 100 kilometres an hour, with obviously with the overdrive engaged, Not a problem at all. Those little hills I was talking to you about, didn't even have to change gear. It just went, whoosh. It went like a shower, if you know what. But then 50 kilometres out from Kalgoorlie, and reaching home, it started developing a bit of a misfire. It didn't seem to be feeling that it was running quite right. And by the time I got it back here in the Landy Cave, or the workshop, it was not running great. And the next day, it really didn't fire up that well either. And so once again, I pulled the points out, and they were brand new points, and they were pretty shot. So, and this was disappointing because when we filmed Dust and Dreams last year, for those of you who don't know, that was a big doco series that was still editing up, Damon and myself, where we went through Central Australia. We had quite a few ignition problems, and I really thought that this was all behind us. So I made sure that I bought the best of the best, and I bought Bosch points, because I've had Bosch products in the series too, and I've had them in there for, I think 12 or 14 years. I got out of a condenser and a coil. Obviously changed the points a bit more regularly, but never ever had a problem. And I thought, Bosch, you know, German, they do things pretty good. You know, had a bit of a bad run with Lucas, I'll go with them. But they're absolutely, yeah, you know what, they're useless. The capacitor or condenser, whatever you want to call it, was Bosch. And just here in the workshop, I went through 3 of them. And I went through 2 sets of points. And I know what you're going to say. Coil, 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 the ignition coil. Well, I checked that with the multimeter, and it is the correct coil. It's a C80 fuel miser, which actually has an inbuilt resistor inside it. I tested the resistance of it, or the ohms, and that was 3.5, which is what it should be. I tested the HT leads, or the high tension leads. They're all okay. I even tested the output of the alternator, which is brand new. Everything in here is brand spanking new. And anyway, the alternator's fine, as it should be. But they were just dropping off like flies. So what I've got in it now, and that's not even half the story, but now I've got a set of points that a very good friend of ours here at Seriously Series, Adam, actually sent over as a bit of a gift after our Dust and Dreams escapades, which is a Lucas set of points and a fuel miser condenser, and it seems to be running okay. So all that, which has taken it, you know, a few minutes to explain, took 3 days of scratching the head, a little bit of singing to myself, and much more. So it's just been a painful process. I would come out here and I would spend probably close to half the day just double checking everything, triple checking everything, go to start it and something would fail. It is the most obstinate vehicle I've ever come across. So that was one of the problems. The other thing was that I wasn't sure if the rebuilt distributor was any good. They're a very, very simple item, but the one thing I've learned out of this whole experience is something that's rebuilt is not something that is brand new. There is a big difference between the two. So I checked, you know, the vacuum advance, that was okay. I then rewired the distributor, so the earth wires in it, and obviously that was problematic. So I had to go and see a good friend of mine, Lindsay, here in Kalgoorlie. If you're watching, Lindsay, thank you very much for your soldering expertise. There's a couple things in this world that I just can't do well. I can ice a cake, but I can't weld for, you know what, or solder. It just comes out looking like the waste product out of a bird. So I had to do that, and that's just the distributor. So once I finally got all that done, and I knew that that might not even work. I also put on an electronic distributor, and many of you are probably going, yay, he's finally realised get rid of points. Well, that was a waste of time too. It was absolutely useless. The car was gutless, it didn't work properly. I fiddled around for about 2 days with that, trying to get it right, trying to bring some life into it, and it was just not going to work. So I went back to the points. And the reason why I like points and run points is because you can actually fix them and do something with them. Whereas an electronic module, when that fails, and you only got one spare, then you really start biting your fingernails and your knuckles go white, because you just don't know if one of the other components is going to blow up. And then many of you are probably saying, just get a diesel. Well, I actually like to get where I'm going, and they're an absolute slug box, these 2.25 litre diesels. No offence to anyone who's got one or likes them. They are a great engine, but just not for me. So anyway, so after doing all that, the next problem I had was the carburetor, the SU carburetor. I had to strip it all apart again 3 times, because for some reason, and I think I figured it out now, when I would set the idle mixture, because they've only got one jet, and you set that at idle, you set the AFI, or the air fuel ratio, through using your AFI gauge, and I'd get that around about, I think, 12.6 to 13.2 was sort of where you wanted roughly to be, so I was just trying to get in that ballpark. And then I'd go for a drive and it'd drop down to 10.6 every time, and you don't want to be going down to 10.6, because that means if the numbers are lower, in simple terms, it's running too rich. And if it runs too rich, then it's going to not only glaze the bores if it's really bad and for a prolonged period of time, and muck up your rings, but it will also, well, that's what I've read anyway, but also it will foul up your spark plugs because it's not burning all the fuel, and it will consume an alarming amount of fuel. But for some reason I just couldn't get it to work. So anyway, so I went back to the Bible, the SU Bible, read the book. That took a day, pulled it all apart again, got it pretty much where I wanted it to be, and then fired it up, and then I found that my AFR gauge is dead. And I've used that for a month, and it's pretty much ready to go on the tip. So that's another $350 that I've had to chuck in just to try and get this thing going. So that, as I said, is just the half of it. I've had to rewire things and redo things 5-6 times over, and I don't rush when I do things. I double check everything, because you don't save yourself anything by rushing and doing not a very good job. So anyway, trek to the coast is postponed till 2023. I can't do it. The reason being, I can't use the Parenti because the gearbox is taking so long to get done. It's now been 4 months, and it was meant to be probably 6 weeks. So that's another level of frustration there. So I'm going to go and do something completely different, and once again, what's going to save the day? The Series 2. The very vehicle I paid $400 for 16 years ago. It's the best $400 I've ever spent. But I really hope that this, obviously for our sake, and particularly for your sake, the viewers, turns a new leaf, and for all the work that's gone into it, it should do. Because I think it's got the potential to be a fantastic vehicle, but just these constant problems that come up. And even, I got the motor back, and to the company's credit who did all the work, they did do a very good job. but you know, there was a couple little parts missing too, so you know, it's not a straight bolt in, bolt out job. Yeah. So anyway, that's where things are at. And I'm sorry if this video is a bit dull, a bit boring, and has been a little bit rant-esque. I do apologise, and I hope that, and I'll make sure that the next one isn't on this particular subject area. This is going to rest up now for probably however long it takes to get this AFR gauge. They're not something here that you can buy straight off the shelf, so it's got to go in the Australia Post or the snail mail. So we'll see what happens. But as always, we'll keep you up to date. And look, thank you all very much for your support. And I just want to also say a very, very special thank you to all of you who have gone out of your way to ponder this situation that I'm in, or maybe we could say we're in, with this vehicle, and have put comments down below and words of encouragement and all the rest. It does mean a huge amount, and I really do appreciate everyone sharing their expertise. And this is one of the great things about why I love Land Rovers. You know, there's no ego, there's none of that. Everyone's in the same boat, and everyone's trying to help one another out. Really good sense of community. And that's exactly what Seriously Series is all about. We're not a channel, we're a community. So thank you all very much for putting those comments down below. It's not just to obviously, I know, help myself, but it's to obviously provide food for thought for others, because I'm sure I'm not the first, and I certainly, well, as much as I hate to say it, probably won't be the last to be in this situation. But anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you to all of you who are supporting us via Patreon. Some of it goes to this, but most of it goes to a lot of other stuff too. And we've got some great news coming your way in regards to Road to Ruin, in regards to releases in the US, the UK, and elsewhere. So anyway, if you're new to the channel, click on that subscribe button down below, click on the notification button too, give the video a thumbs up if you like it, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks again. See you then.